Nice job. You finished the coding tutorial and you feel great. That was actually kind of fun. But then you start thinking about what you want to do for your next project. And you realize, oh wait, coding is kind of hard, isn't it? While the coding tutorial taught you some things about the programming language that you're learning, it doesn't tell you how to think for yourself. You might have heard someone say, just find a problem and fix it. And while they are right, it's not really that simple for beginners. If you find a problem that's too easy, you'll get bored. If you find a problem that's too hard, you'll just get stopped in your tracks. So where is it that you find that sweet spot? Today I'll be talking about the scope expansion process, which will help you to break out of this dilemma. Using this process, you'll be able to take a tutorial you've completed, expand on its scope, then use your experiences as a launching pad towards a project of your own. Then you can replicate this process with any new technology you learn and expand your portfolio. I'll use a coding project I threw together to help illustrate what this process will look like. So there's two major skills that you're going to need to master. The first is ideation. This is your ability to come up with projects to work on. The next is execution. This is your ability to do those projects that you came up with. These go hand in hand together. If your execution is too high, you'll have a really boring project. If your ideation is too high, the scope of the project will be way too big and you will not be able to execute on it. The question is, how do we find this balance? First, we start by gently expanding the scope of the project you currently have. Let's say that you have a program that converts Fahrenheit to Celsius. For illustration purposes, here's one that I created. This is a run-of-the-mill temperature converter that I created in JavaScript. It's a very simple function. It has a temperature and a conversion type that's taken in, and then it spits out a temperature at the end. You run it with a command, it does the thing. Think of a tutorial you've done like this in the past. It's probably sitting on your system collecting dust. Now's the part where you dig that project up and start expanding on it. Yeah, I know it sounds ridiculous, but just hear me out because I've got some good news for you. The codebase is really familiar to you, so this gives you three major advantages. You don't have to start from scratch, first of all. Secondly, you get to learn how to maintain a codebase. Plus, if you forget any syntax at all, you can simply look at the code that you've already written in the project without having to change context. What you'll want to do is just add more features. Come up with a list of them. Two things. Do not overthink it. Just throw a bunch of ideas out there. You don't have to do all of them. Secondly, make them tiny features, actually small features. If you do literally just this, you are improving your ideation process. Once you've thought of some features, add a couple of them. Yes, this will be hard. You might have to Google search some things. Don't be mad at yourself for that. Here's what the temperature converter might look like if I added a new feature to it. Initially, all we did was convert from Celsius to Fahrenheit and back. But now we're able to do it with Kelvin. If you go down here, you'll see just like the other file, there are console logs. Let's run this. Feel free to go and verify that these numbers are indeed correct. Yes, this is a very simple addition, but remember that there are tons of people that don't even get this far. Instead of expanding on a tutorial they already have, they go and find another one. This helps you think for yourself. Once you add something as simple as this, it might have felt good. Take advantage of that. Find another idea that you have and add it on. For example, you can make it so that it'll tell you, is this a comfortable temperature for a human? That's subjective, but who cares? We can just say that it's your comfortable temperatures. By the end of this, you'll now have increased your ability to execute. This is all great, but you're gonna hit the brain block again. And there's another thing that's kind of nagging at you too, I'm sure. This is a console application. Most real people don't work with the console. They work with things like websites or files or even things in the physical world. A console app can only get you so far. This next step is critical if you really want to get out of your comfort zone. The next step is to change the medium. This could be the web, file IO, perhaps something on a breadboard. Anything will work here, but it's your job now to expand the scope of your project. While finding a new medium will increase ideation to some degree, don't rely on it too much. We don't want to get too ambitious here. We just want to get the project outside of just being a console application. Really, the focus here is going to be on the execution. In order to upgrade the temperature converter, I decided to take two different paths. One was the file I/O path, and the other was a web page path. We'll start with the file I/O path, since that's a little simpler. The way I wanted to do it with file I/O was bulk conversions. Basically, you take a list of temperatures from a file, you convert those temperatures to a different unit, then you move it over to another file. This file will have all of the converted temperatures in order, and whoever wants bulk temperature conversions is now happy. I honestly had to remember how to open files using Node.js, but basically what we have here is a function called batch temperature convert. You might have also noticed that we use the convert temperature function that we made earlier. Let's say we go in here and actually try to run this. We would do node temperature converter new medium. The first argument is going to be temperatures.text, which is just a list of temperatures that we have. For reference, this is what temperatures.text looks like. Then the next thing we have to provide is the conversion type. Let's say that we wanted to convert from Fahrenheit to Celsius. Fahrenheit to Celsius. We now have a successful write to the directory. So if we were to actually go over here and open up the Fahrenheit to Celsius.text, Fahrenheit to Celsius, that's our values. And if we wanted to look at temperatures.text, that's what they were before. So here's the before and after, or in this case, after and before. So that is the first of the two new mediums. All right, so this next project is a bit of a doozy, definitely more of a jump from the file I/O we were doing earlier. At the core of it, it's an HTML file that has some JavaScript logic attached to it, and it lets you convert temperatures in real time. We'll start at the level of the HTML file and kind of work our way out. Firstly, you'll see that there is some styles that we have here. This just makes it look pretty. Then we come up to the body, which is a simple bubble that's going to have all of the different functionality that we want in it. So if we were to go now into this UI logic.js script at the bottom here, once again, notice how we're using the convert temperature function. This is another example where changing the medium doesn't mean you have to rewrite everything. In fact, you can reuse the exact same function for plenty of different things. Now let's try and run the server. You'll see that I'm just using the HTTP server package from NPM. It will return the index.html file when a browser tries to connect to it. Server's running. We're going to move over to the browser. Here's a temperature converter. As you can see, we do input temperature, and it will update in real time. Anything we add here will work. You can also do decimals and so forth. If you want to change the way the things are converted, you can select one of these and it'll also update in real time. You'll probably notice that changing the medium is pretty challenging, and that's the point. Console applications give you a good idea of how to do basic logic, but then you have to kind of get out of your comfort zone. You have to say, okay, well, how do we move this over to an index.html file? It really is a lot of research. I couldn't tell you exactly how to do it for your particular language, but you always start with baby steps. Always find the tiniest, smallest little dependency that you can use in order to get your project onto a different medium. And here's what's great. In the vast majority of cases, you're going to be able to pluck the logic that you got from your initial application and just put it into something else. This process is a skill in itself and will vastly increase your execution. By this point, you've managed to get your tutorial code beefed up. But now what? We're back at the original crossroads again. You don't know what to do next. But now you're armed with new knowledge. What did you like about expanding the scope of your previous project? Was there a feature that you particularly enjoyed making? Was the medium that you used really interesting to you? You want to keep all of these things in mind as you're coming up with a real project idea. The next thing you'll want to do is to create a list of problems that you have. If you don't have any, then please let me know in the comments how you did that, because I'm still trying to figure that one out. The problems do not have to be directly related to programming. They could be anything. Any problems, period. Once again, another chance to increase your ideation. Here's a list of my admittedly first world problems. There's two major things you want to think about here. You don't have to create a program that completely solves one of these problems. It can solve one piece of a tiny bit of a microcosm of the problem, and that's totally fine. Secondly, yes, somebody has made the solution you're thinking of. 1 million people have probably done it. It does not matter. What matters is that your skill is being leveled up here. I'm going to handpick a few problems from this list. One of the problems I do is I procrastinate financial planning. Maybe if I create a project where it's easy for me to do that, it wouldn't be so bad. So perhaps I can do like a compounding calculator. It'll just take in how much I would want to put in every month and see how that would compound over time. This wouldn't be far off from the Fahrenheit to Celsius project because there's a lot of math involved. The problem is also dynamic enough that you can very easily switch it to a new medium. Another problem I have is not knowing what game to play next. You might have this problem too, but I know that Steam has an API that you can connect to in order to see a lot of your Steam account information. One of those things is the list of games that you have. It is very possible that I could just hook that up to a random number generator and have it spit out a random game that I definitely for sure, for real, seriously have to play this time. Another problem I have is that I want a better way to organize my titles and thumbnails. There's a huge brainstorming process that goes into packaging a video, so having something that would fix this would be huge. Basically, it would be a UI that lets me have all of my thumbnails in one place and perhaps all of my possible titles in one place. Then I can mix and match them however I want, or add new titles and thumbnails, and so forth. This could be a good project if I just want to learn about front-end web UI, or maybe if I want to go towards desktop UI, that could work as well. Then once you've thought of a few ideas yourself, pick the one that is closest to your area of execution. I'll give you a few extra tips on this because it is pretty dang hard to do. Keep the scope small in the beginning. Then once you've completed that scope, then you can increase it some more. If you don't do this, you're going to overwhelm yourself. If you feel like you can get about 70% of the way through the project and the rest of it you're really not too sure about, that's a good spot to be in. You need to have some unknowns going into any project. The project won't be perfect. It will not be interesting to most people. You're not going to have recruiters scrambling for you after you complete the project. But make enough projects and it just might. And I mean a lot of times. Each iteration, you're basically farming your ideation and your execution. Essentially, all you are doing is expanding the scope of a tutorial project you worked on by adding features to it, changing the medium, and then using everything you've learned from that to create a new project of your own. Throughout this process, you're also increasing the stats of your ideation and your execution. This is your action item. Take a week, 2 weeks, a month, whatever's easier for you. Find a tutorial, complete it, or perhaps use a tutorial that you've already done and add this process to it. Document this process and what you learned, and if you remember to, please leave a comment here on what you think. Eventually you might find yourself a job. If you do, or maybe you are soon, check out my video where I talk about the expectations of junior engineers. You'd be surprised what they can get away with. Anyway, that's about it. Thanks for watching.